Hello, everyone, and welcome to those of you who may be tuning in for the first time, or to anyone who has been following with Season 1 and decided to tune in for Season 2 also. Plus, I want to say welcome back to the panel, and welcome because we have someone new who's going to be filling in today. Kara has decided, or very graciously decided to bless us with her presence because two of our SHET panelists were not able to make it today, which we're very sad about, but we do have Kara here now. So if you would like, Kara, do you want to just give the chat a quick introduction on yourself and let them know who you are, and then we can get on with the episode after that?
Yeah, my name's Kara. I've been playing the game on and off, mostly off, for about 5 years. I've been doing World v World pretty hard for about a year now. Mostly right now I play Sea Time. I've already forgotten my server again, Henge of Den Ravi. The reason I keep forgetting my server is because I have a lot of accounts and I cannot keep track of anything. And let's see, I'm mostly a support player. I do like to kill stuff. I hate to miss a fight, thus all the accounts. And if you happen to be playing Sea Time and you see anybody from the Guild Red, please kill me as hard as you can.
Perfect. We like the challenge. I'm also going to be watching for you. I don't generally do the roaming or the ganking, but if we Zerg v Zerg, I'll be there. We can fight it out. So the other two panelists that are going to be with us here today are Zee and Sheff. Sadly, Regal and Sahana were not able to make it. I know we really enjoyed the last couple of episodes with them. Hopefully they'll be back later on. But for now, Zee, Sheff, do you guys want to give another quick introduction of yourself just so that everyone is used to your voice, knows what you are again before we dive into the subject?
Go for it, Zee.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I'm Zee. My server, we kind of, not too recently, but I'm on Devona's Rest server. I've been World v World ing, or whatever you say, I think a couple of years now. And I've been commanding maybe for almost a year. And I also do mostly support. I like my firebrand. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, and I do occasionally, want to murder things with like maybe a roamer, mesmer build with a staff. But other than that, other than that, I like to be support and support the murder.
We all like murder in World vs. World, let's be honest.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
I agree. All right, Sheff, you're last.
I'm Sheff. I'm still Sheff. I'm still on Fort Aspenwood. Been playing a lot of Firebrand recently. I had been doing like some Necromane stuff, but with the Firebrand balance patch and the profession rework and all that kind of stuff that came out, I've been doing a lot of Firebrand lately. And as a result, I'm no longer top 200 in Emblems of the Avenger on Guild Wars efficiency. It's a difficult time for me, and so I'm hoping for privacy and respect during this time. But
time of
hopefully we
grieving.
Yeah, it's really like a time of grieving. I'm not like that special in a lot of areas on Guild Wars. I've only played for like a couple of years. I can't keep up with like the big accounts. This was like my one bright spot, and now it's a world of darkness. But we'll get back there as soon as I'm done with all the Firebrand stuff I got to do. We'll be back on some DPS builds, just tagging stuff all over the place. So
I'm going to shamelessly plug in here that Sheff is also a content creator. If you guys are interested, he does a lot of World v World build explanations and stuff on his YouTube. I am going to link it below in the description, so definitely check him out because they're really informational and they're good, and he puts a lot of time and effort into them. So, yeah, definitely go drop him a follow.
The time and effort part is debatable.
I mean, you spend a lot of time. You've learned completely new builds and stuff for these videos, and you've dissected them, and that takes some time.
That's fair. Yeah, and there's a lot to come. I'm having a lot of fun with it. So if there's any kind of builds that you guys want to see me test, play, do a video on, leave a message in the comments as well. I keep track of these things.
Yeah, he's all about teaching world versus world builds to people and stuff like that, which actually will be a subject later on in the season. I don't think we've covered... Oh, we have covered builds already, haven't we? Because we plugged your thing last time. So if you haven't already, go listen to the episode on what you need to know about world versus world builds and learning a world versus world build. We do have an episode on that. Because the overall goal of this season is going to be touching on aspects of world versus world for new players. We want to have a season that kind of explains world versus world, the mechanics, some things that you need to know going into world versus world, like builds, community, basic roles, things like that. And so today the subject is going to be, as I just mentioned, we're going to be going over basic roles in world versus world and kind of what they are and what they do, which can kind of be complicated because of world versus world and like the overall structure of the game mode. So I kind of want to ask the panel first, what is world versus world and what makes it able to host all of the different play styles that you see in the game mode, like roaming, havoc, zerging, PPT, fighting, GVGs. All of this stuff kind of makes up the world versus world ecosystem. But what in world versus world allows for that, and what makes it thrive so much, having all of these different play styles?
I can start it off if that's cool with people.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
It's what's always attracted me to it is that it's just kind of a sandbox. Like most of Guild Wars is a sandbox, to be fair. But if you're doing a meta event on a map, then there's like a prompt on your screen that's like, hey, this meta event is running. You see the event thing in the top right corner. It gives you some information about what's going on. World versus World doesn't really have that. All the content in World versus World is driven by the players on the map. And all of those different players have different goals. And they're all playing with different sizes of groups. You have big groups, small groups, duelers, roamers, individual people. And all those people have different things that they actually want to get done. So it's just kind of like this ecosystem where a bunch of different people are coexisting, pursuing different goals, fighting against one another, working with your own team members, working against other team members. And a lot of the content that we talk about in World versus World is really just being driven by the people who are playing it and pursuing their own kind of personal or group goals.
Okay. Zee? Cara, do you want to touch in on this? What do you think? What about world versus world do you think allows for all of these different play styles to happen and flourish and exist together?
One, I do really like Chef's take on it. One of the things that makes World v World so special for me, as far as PvP mode in any game that I've ever played, is it's absolutely open. There really is no goal. It looks, we may be talking a little later about play styles and things that we do in World v World. And not only is that strictly player driven, it's player driven to the point that none of us can really agree what winning is. If you happen to play on a server where a lot of people like to play PPT, for instance, where you go and take a lot of objectives, castles and keeps and towers and things, and hold them from your enemies or build a lot of siege on them, that's one play style. And there are certain points that you can get associated with them, and they may move you up and down in rankings. But you'll find that other people on your server don't think that winning at those things is winning at all. And some of them will be very angry with you if you win too much, or angry with you if you win too little, or angry with you if you don't understand that winning involves actually taking a lot of camps or killing everyone you see on another team or spying on another team. And the interaction between everyone's different goals can be a source of tension, but it's a source of kind of a lot of really creative joy, because you can't just go off on your own goal in World v World. You may have decided that you're going to take SMC today and that's all you're going to do. And everyone else on your server may have decided that they're going to kill the red team. And that's all that's going to happen that day. And y'all have got to find some way to make that work together or you don't get to play at all. And I just think that's really cool. The real enemy in World v World is being able to submerge your goals into the rest of your server if you want to have a good time.
I love that you brought up spies because I totally forgot
Yeah.
to touch on the phenomenon of spying in World versus World and its perceived importance or lack thereof.
Yeah, scouting is a big role in World versus World. We are going to have an episode later on that is going to be kind of about how these play styles evolve into roles that kind of help your team and stuff like that. What I really liked was that you guys touched on how everybody kind of has their own goals, and you could see this not just within servers, but like server to server, right? Every server is going to have a different play style based on what their culture and their ultimate goals coming together ends up being. Like if you face against Mag only cares about middle fort. They only care about SMC. They want to cloud in SMC and they want to hold middle fort infinitely with all of their siege, and they just want to be a menace. And then you get into groups that are like lower tiered, like T3 groups, that T3 is supposed to be the best place for fight guilds because they don't care about towers and keeps and objectives and stuff like that. They just want to fight. And so if you're just going to fight and you just want to fight, then objectives aren't going to be scoring you points constantly because you're not going to be capping them. That's not what you care about. And so you're not going to rise to T1 where Mag is, because Mag wants to just hold SMC, and that's a huge point score. So I think I think that's very like a cool dynamic, and all of these different play styles and stuff kind of fit into it, like, and stuff like that. Zee, did you want to touch on this at all before we kind of evolve into the next question, or?
I mean, it would just be a lot of like, echoing what has already been said. It's extremely open. You can kind of set your own goals and kind of do them. And every group has their way of doing things, playing the game. And the lovely map chat of single people yelling at you for not doing the thing that they want you to do, But yeah, a
We've
lot of
talked
it.
in previous seasons about like World v World toxicity, but it is nice to like stop and smell the flowers sometimes and just appreciate people who have strong opinions about the game mode disagreeing with one another in map chat and team chat.
Yeah, and it happens all the time. One person just single-handedly spamming and taking over in the entire team chat because of some just obtuse video game reason.
They moved your siege.
Pretty.
Someone moved their siege, and they didn't like that.
Yes. So all sorts of just entertainment within World v World. But yeah, no, I think a lot of the points that I was thinking about have already been said. So I think I'm pretty good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, if we think that we've covered everything and that makes World versus World kind of the perfect background and frameworks for all of these different play styles, then how do you think these different play styles end up affecting World versus World itself? So kind of like the flip. We're flipping it on its head. World versus World affects people, and how do the people affect World versus World now?
Well, I think you already brought up probably the most dramatic example, which is Mag. Our other servers, we tend to strike a real balance between, say, guilds who like to fight big fights, guilds who like to fight small fights, guilds who like to take objectives. There's a bunch of all of those sorts of people on every other server, and then there's Mag. And if Mag can attract one or two fight guilds, it's a really unusual matchup for them. Because what they are is a server full of roamers who, well, they take SMC. And lately they also hold their borderland because they've gotten very large.
So large.
It's less that, and it's more that like other servers now know to not go to EBG when they're matched up against Mag, so Mag has to go somewhere else to find anything to do.
True.
Yeah.
If I can diverge really briefly from your pedestal, I have a Mag account that I pip on sometimes just to like, maintenance mode it. There will be times that it is not possible to get pips on EBG when you're on Mag because there is nothing that you can do to actually generate participation besides looking for like one person to kill.
It's the truth.
Yeah. And the pattern that I have seen with like how like all this stuff that makes World v World, like if you know that you're against Mag, at least from my experience, it just feels like your team is non-existent the entire week.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I know a lot of guilds who will take breaks during Mag Week. Literally on the servers I've been on, it's literally called Mag Week. When we know that we're going to be facing Mag, a lot of the commanders will be like, if you guys want to tag up, you can go ahead, but I'm not tagging up this week. I'm not really interested. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what they will do.
And I've got a mag account too. And I am also familiar with that horrendous sinking feeling that you've been matched with mag. Nothing's going to happen this week. You won't even be able to get into EBG. It will be awful. But from my mag account's perspective, mag's always pretty fun. There's always something going on. They're willing to fight anything. They're just doing their mag thing. And it's so different than every other server. It's just so fascinating to me that they've evolved this very separate culture that's exactly their own. And from the outside, it looks so terrible. And from the inside, it's really so friendly.
True. And it's kind of like that with every server, right? That's definitely how players themselves end up affecting World versus World. If you go onto Mag, like you said, it's definitely that culture. And then if you go onto a different server, say a server
Blackgate
that's...
is probably the only other server that has like unestablished culture, I would say. Or, I mean,
I
every
don't
server has an
know.
established culture, but
Everybody has. I don't know. I don't agree with that. If you go onto like your server, Chef, which is generally a lot of fight guilds, smaller fight guilds, closed tag type stuff. I don't know if you guys have many PPT or not PPT, many open tags. Because I know when you were linked with us, one of the biggest things you said was that it was nice having open tags.
we have
So
Bucket Lips and Buckets Bandits, and we have Chef who tags on Mondays, and that's pretty
true.
much it. Yeah,
I ran with this chef guy who tags on Mondays. Yeah.
not very good.
he was fun. He was
Aw.
fun. He was fun. I had a good time running with him.
But yeah, I think that's a fair criticism, is that every server does kind of have a culture, but I think there's kind of servers that like stick out as being servers that have a particular way of playing. And I think Mag is definitely at the top of that pyramid and having sort of like an identity.
I think it's
Like
more
everyone
they
has an
have
identity, but
I think it's more they have established reputation for playing in a specific way, more so than they have cultures and everyone else doesn't. I think every server has a culture of some sort. TC has a culture. They're known as the roleplay guild. I'm not sure, or the roleplay guild, the roleplay server. That was their big thing. When I joined 3 years ago, it was TC. I was on TC, and everybody was like, we're the roleplay server. Everybody, there's some really cool guilds on there, but we weren't particularly serious. You know what I mean? I think everybody does have that culture, but definitely when it comes to reputation-wise, Mag and Blackgate are probably the big ones. I do agree with that. So what else do you guys think? Is there any other like specific ways that players and playstyles affect World versus World ecosystem, or?
Yeah, Chef and you both brought up a really good one when you talked about open tags versus not open tags.
Mhm.
You can change an entire culture just by having tags on the map. And whether that's like good or bad, I can't say. It depends, I guess, on whether we talked about goals before. I guess it depends on whether your goal is to roam and fight things or your goal is to follow a tag. But if you're a server that typically has a lot of open tags, someone to follow, someone to explain what zerging builds are and what they do and why you might want to have one of those, you're going to get a different balance of players than if you're a server that has mostly roamers that keep to themselves and sort of build their own very specific, very tailored things. And that can make a really interesting difference in those cultures either way.
True. So, since we're kind of on the subject of how players and their different play styles, open tag, closed tag, roaming, havocing, all of this stuff, since we're on that subject, I think now is kind of a good time to break down what it is exactly these things are and what the different play styles that can affect world versus world are, so that people kind of understand what we mean when we say mag is basically a roaming server, right? They like clouding, they like roaming. They don't generally have tags up as far as I know. Like they just kind of do their thing. They cap SMC, they basically annihilate all of EBG, and then they move on to their borderland type thing. So what are the primary play styles that you'll see on the borderland?
We've mentioned a few already. We have you have the Zergs that are, large groups of peoples that are usually comped. You have, supports, damage, boon strip people, etc. They mostly go and take the big objectives, like keeps, towers, things like that. Castles if mag isn't around. Uh, yeah. So you got the big Zergs. You have smaller groups that are like more havocy, and I like to call them like kind of more sneaky groups. They can sneak into and also take over things while the Zergs are distracting the other Zergs. They're mostly, at least, they're more like kind of roamy builds, which is also another way of doing things in World v World. Roaming builds typically are self-sustaining. You have your own kind of support system. Condi clears have means of escaping if you need to. If you're fighting too many people, roaming builds are kind of more like solo-ish playing for World v World. They typically they can, I mean, from my experience with smaller dealing with commanding smaller groups, they like to harass people a lot, or take over camps, kill Doliacs, things like that. And I think also, they just do that. They kind of do that, all that stuff. I don't want to like say they talk about like all the different ones. I know there's also guild versus guild, and that's a little bit more specialized as well, but
They tend to not
other
even be on Borderlands for that,
they
though. Like,
don't. Yeah,
GVGs are
they
usually
don't.
just off in EOTM land.
Yeah, that is true. I have occasionally Expandas did like a GVG in one of the Borderlands at one point a little while back. But
There's
that's,
the classic
that's a
Fight
change.
Island spot, the windmill spot
The
on
windmill
Yeah.
South
spot.
Island in the Alpine Borderlands.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But yeah, there's many ways of playing things in World v World, and of course we've mentioned like, scouting,
Would you?
which I'm assuming could be like a roaming build, because like you can get away quick.
Yeah, that was the exact question that I was going to ask. For
Oh.
scouting specifically, would you see that as a play style, or would you see that as like a subset of roaming?
Yeah, it could. I think could be a good easy subset for roaming, because you can be a part of like a tag that's roaming, that's taking stuff on the map, and you can ask them to like share participation, so you don't get super tanked with your rewards during your gameplay. But yeah, no, I can totally see scouting being a subset of roaming. It's really easy for roamers to do that. They're very mobile, and can just kind of go places undetected, more so than larger groups.
True.
Huh.
Chef, Kara, do you want to join in and kind of like talk about the different play styles and?
But that just highlighted a difference in playstyle that's so big I couldn't even see it until just this moment. I play mostly the style where guilds fight other guilds, like not formally GVG particularly, although I like that style too.
Mm-hmm.
But just guilds who run around looking for somebody else to fight and not worrying about objectives at all, which is great because I don't know how to build a siege very well.
Oh,
I always
you were
forget supply.
Right?
Every time.
But you were talking about scouts going out and not being seen, and and finding things in secret. And the way that the guilds who like to fight each other find things out is they send each other messages. Where are y'all? Oh, we're right here. Hang on, we'll be right there. Oh, hang on, we're waiting on a firebrand. Give us 5 seconds. Like that.
Yeah.
That's much simpler. And it made me forget that there's another way that you have to do that sometimes. And so I was just listening in fascination, thinking about how you'd utilize that and realizing that we really are all playing completely different games.
Yeah, it's almost like by the server, by like the style that you're playing, everything is going to be different and it's going to affect things differently, like we were talking about before. Chef, do you want to chime in a little bit on the subject?
Yeah, the only thing that I want to contribute to this is that you can overlap roles. If you don't just have to be like a roamer, you don't just have to be a scout, you don't just have to be like a small group or big group player. There's a person in K&T who I won't name. It's not like anything malicious, but I won't name them for, the sake of privacy, who on a slow night will template swap to a roaming build and like find people to roam while we're sieging a tower. And then when a group shows up, they'll come back to the stack and then they'll play the support role that they're supposed to be playing. You can really move between a lot of those different roles, especially things like scouting, because it doesn't take a lot of effort to just make a scout call and be like, hey, I'm at X. I just saw a group of 25 red. If anyone wants to come and fight them. So, in keeping with the idea that World versus World is this big sandbox and that you can do anything you want, you don't have to have yourself locked into a single role, and you can do a lot of these different things based on what's going on a given night, what kind of groups you're in a matchup with, what kind of groups are tagged that night. There's all kinds of different stuff that can influence the way that you want to play World versus World in that particular moment, and I don't think people should be afraid to take advantage of that. Explore a bunch of these different things and have fun with all the different aspects of the game mode rather than keeping yourself to just doing one specific thing.
Yeah, I really like that, especially because this season is geared towards new players. I think it's very, very important that while we're talking about all of these different play styles, we emphasize that World versus World is not played in one way. It is played in all of these different ways. All of these different styles will affect different things. They are all valid, that you could do any of them. And I feel like obviously there's going to be the best way to introduce someone into World versus World, but a lot of people see that introduction and they go onto a borderland, they see a tag, a pug tag, an open tag that maybe isn't comped, so the play style is a little bit iffy. If you don't have stab, obviously it's very, very hard to play the game. So, and they might not like that. They might not like it, and they'll give up on World versus World because that is what they basically think World versus World is, but they aren't understanding that World versus World has a lot of these complex other play styles that may click with them better. Maybe they don't like large-scale pug zergs, right? Maybe they don't like pug tags. Maybe they think PPT is the most boring thing in the frickin' world, because if I wanted to fight a boss, I would go do a raid, right? If I wanted to cap a keep and fight the air keep boss, no. I would go fight there's raid bosses with better mechanics than these lords. I don't want to do that. That's boring. There's some people that are like that, but there's also other people that are like, I don't want to be in a group that wipes over and over and only fights. And I don't want to do that because I don't think that's fun. I don't like dying over and over and over again. And so I really am going to encourage people, and kind of the point of this episode was, I'm going to encourage people who are getting into World versus World to try out the different styles. There's tons of them. They all play differently based on who you're playing with. Community is huge. Find a good community, find what you like, and then judge whether or not World versus World is for you. You know what I mean? It's very hard. It's so many people I know, they're like, I don't like World versus World. I like World. You just go in, you join a tag, you die a bunch, or you like only take towers and you run away from fights. Like that that's not fun for me, and they just won't go back into World versus World again, or they'll be like, I only World versus World for Gifts of Battle. I don't know. What do you guys think on that? Do you think that's like a good encouragement for new players? Definitely try things out.
Yeah, you're totally right. And like, try all the things.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
The I only go into World versus World for Gifts of Battle take is fair to the extent that some people don't like PvP. And I think if you don't really like competitive gameplay against other players, there's probably not going to be a lot in World versus World for you to like.
True.
Like, yeah, PPT exists and you can do it, but like, is doing PPT and trying to avoid fights with other players at all angles the best use of your time in a game that's otherwise significantly oriented around PvE? I'd argue like probably not, and you would have more fun just doing like Dragonfall or something like that. So for someone who doesn't like competitive gameplay, yeah, maybe don't push yourself too hard. But for people who like the PvP element of games, I definitely try like more than one thing in World versus World before you sign off on it. There's a lot of different ways that you can play the game mode, and one of them might stick for you.
True.
For sure.
True.
And it also certainly helps that the World v. World community is nice and understanding and accepting of like new people trying to get into the game content.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, yeah.
Usually, you know,
Usually.
Yeah, you don't like want to this is from like my first experience of World v. World. I was on a roamer ranger build. I had no idea what I was doing. I was following a small group in red Borderlands, and we were at the I think it's the old Academy Tower, right at spawn. And I was just following them. We got into the little nook you usually go to kite the boss to you. And this one dude just said in like say chat to like, don't mess up my pool or whatever. But they did it really more mean than that. They used some curse words and stuff like that. And I had no idea what they were talking about, because at that point I didn't even realize they were kiting the boss so that they didn't have to deal with her, jumping around all the time, because that's what that tower boss does. And the people around them were apologizing on his behalf for like just being absolutely rude to like a new player. So don't do that. Maybe.
True.
But yeah.
Don't be mean to the new players.
Yeah, you can't be
be nice to new players. Like, don't just inherently.
I mean, honestly,
you don't know.
Don't be mean to any players.
Anyone.
That's a tall ask for some people.
There's a couple people on Fort Aspenwood who I'll be mean to and not really feel too bad about it. But they know who they are, and also they kind of deserve it.
Oh no, no. Toxic gaming coming out, guys. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys, what play styles more lend themselves to you guys particularly? What play styles do you like the most, and what ones do you usually frequent?
Well, I can go.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it when a group works together toward one goal, and like that feeling of flow when like 20 people are all doing parts of one job in a way that makes 20 people work as one person, and then suddenly either everything around them is dead or they're all dead. That's just the best feeling in the entire world. So I love the group versus group fights, guild v guild, or honestly everybody v my guild, or however that comes out. Those are my favorites.
Okay.
That's also my answer. Like the group fights in World versus World are what make it unique for me. Having the idea of like, you are in both your party and you are in a squad to do one thing. Whether it's like you're a firebrand, your job is stability, quickness, aegis, and stun breaks. You're a tempest, your job is cleanses, healing, and a little bit of interrupts. you're a dragon hunter, your only job is to generate and convert downs. I like you being like one piece of that puzzle, and when all the other pieces of that puzzle are working well together, you win fights. And when they're not, you lose fights, but it's something for everyone to work on as a team. I keep getting asked to do roaming, to talk about roaming, to have roaming builds, give roaming tips. It's never really stuck for me in the same way, because there I'm every piece of the puzzle.
Zee, what about you? What kind of play style do you favor?
Yeah, I mean, I also favor like the big groups, but recently I've been commanding small, less than 10 people, and what I've been enjoying, or at least attempting to do with my small little crew, is finding borderlands that already has a commander on there, and they're fat, and they're taking a big objective from someone. And so I take my little group, go to the opposite side of the map, and we take another big objective. As so they're, the opposing team is distracted. And, while one group is taking a tier 3 camp, or not camp, keep, my tiny crew can sneak in and take the other one. Sometimes. That's like more havoc-y. What I've been trying to do. It's fun when when it works. And then other times,
It's probably sometimes fun when it doesn't work too, I'd imagine.
It is. Oh, my favorite thing is when you're watching the other tag and then they disappear and I'm like, oh, they wiped.
Uh-oh.
And then you just have this like they're going to descend upon us, and we just kind of wait until they do. Sometimes we get to Lord and we get the ring up, and then they all charge in. But it's real fun, to make them go back and forth across the map. It really, I think, causes chaos, and I like to cause chaos.
That is the true meaning of havoc. To
Yes.
cause pure chaos. That's the type of play style that I like the most. I'm a havoc person. I don't mind all of the others. Like I'll definitely Zerg, I'll definitely group fight, things like that. But if I had to pick one to do, it would definitely be havoc. It's a lot of fun. I agree with that. I agree with that sentiment. But other than that, I think that kind of wraps up this. I think I would have wished that I'd asked some of the questions in different orders, but I think that we got the general point across that World versus World is kind of this huge ecosystem that has all of these moving parts that anyone can really find a play style, unless you don't like comp, like Chef said. Anyone can find a play style that they'll end up liking and things like that. It's honestly probably one of the coolest things about World versus World, that it's so dynamic and it's so fluid like that. And it's this huge sandbox-ish environment that allows for all these different types of styles to come out and play together and be a team and develop a culture for their servers. And it also makes the game mode insanely complex, right? With all of the active moving parts. If you think about it and look down from a bird's eye view type of way, like Kara said, she didn't even realize that there were all of these different ways to like get information and things like that, and there were all of these different play styles, and it was so huge compared to maybe your small niche of the World versus World community. But anyway, chat, if you're listening on YouTube or Spotify or anything like that, please feel free to post any comments on your views, opinions, tips and tricks for new players, all of that stuff in the comments below. You can also support the podcast by sharing with people who you think may be interested in the subject. It's completely free to do so, by the way, and it helps us in the algorithm. You can also put it on in the background and kind of boost our viewership if you'd like. And, of course, subscribe to the channel. All free ways. We enjoy free ways to support creators. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining for this episode, and we'll see you next time, chat.
You're welcome.